It embraced all people, regardless of color, religion, politics, whatever your thoughts were with the democratic principles, where they openly displayed and advocated them for all people, regardless of your nationality, your religion, your politics, what country you came from, or what color you were. You were part of the membership of Local 600. This was instilled in the leadership of the local from the time of the Hunger March up in time of the organizing of the Ford plant. 60,000 some people attending a funeral of people they had never seen or heard of before. This was because of the awful conditions that was existing in Detroit and all across the country at the time. Can you imagine 60,000 people trying to get into the church is full, and yet the newspapers who was against us at the time say there were 60,000 or more at the funeral, 4 white and 1 black. 1932. That's an example I've tried to explain to you how I saw the people felt and the misery and the trials and tribulation they were going through due to hunger. This down here is some 9 years later. This is the beginning of the so-called, not the so-called, the Battle of the Overpass, where Walter Reuther, Dick Frankenstein, and the rest of them took place. There's the company goons approaching them. Here is where the actual fight took place. This is the result of some of the fight. Dick Frankenstein and Walter. If you see, Walter got a black eye, Dick Frankenstein got blood all on his shirt. This is where, again, they took pictures of him. Here's another guy with a black eye. This is the old paper that we were distributing in the neighborhoods around the city of Detroit during the organizing drive at Ford. This is where the organizing drive began to reach its heights. No one knows what the hell the drive at Ford went through at the time to get it organized. It was a different situation altogether between General Motors and Chrysler. Never before the industrial union tried to organize an outfit like the Ford Motor Company. Even though General Motors and Chrysler were larger than Ford, they had not the same setup that the Ford Motor Company had. Ford had all its operations on the one over here known as the Ford Rouge plant. This is the overpass again, where when you get off the trolley cars, you would go into where they said the union leaders began to assemble. These are the Dearborn police here. Yeah. During the organizing drive, we went and got a charter for Local 600. Those names on there, all of them are dead now. Every one of the charter members are gone, all of them. This is how some of the Ford workers used to have to appear. They were still in the plant, but this is how they had to appear during the organizing drive to keep the Ford Motor Company from recognizing them. I was involved in that also. I'm not on that picture. These were some of the black leaders who some of them didn't work at Ford's. They were volunteer organizers to help us because most of the blacks at the time who was trying to organize Ford was working in the plant, including me, and I'll show you a book sometime that a guy named Bill Mackay wrote, and he was telling the people how those of us in the plant would send out information to the outside organizers who didn't work in the plant. And he mentions me quite frequently of what I went through and when I finally got caught and how I was treated by the Ford Motor Company. This is a guy named Oscar Noble. He helped organize General Motors up in Pontiac. He used to work at the General Motors plant. And after General Motors was organized, he volunteered to come down to be one of the outside organizers who helped organize Ford. Most of these are outside black organizers from different locals, from GM and Chrysler. They came down to help us. This is during the strike, when some of the scabs stayed in, few, not very many, and they thought they was going to get the hell beat out of them, but no, we welcomed them to come out. And we will see us giving them literature. This is a guy by the name of Joe Mifsud. He died about 2 years ago. Joe was one of the inside organizers, but this was after the strike, about the second day of the strike. This year is a picture of after the strike had been started too, where some of the guys in the Ford Motor Company officials on the overpass going in. This is during the organizing drive. And they say, what is this about labor trouble at Ford Place? What's this about labor trouble at Ford Place? Here is one of our guys who got the hell beat out of him. Here is the old local organizing committee headquarters on Michigan Avenue. These are some of the leaflets that we passed out for everything. Now, the people in the plant struck themselves. The union leaders didn't call the strike. Some of them were so scared they had shit in their blood. And we came out anyway. There was a guy named Andy Dewar down in the rolling mill who got pissed off at the foreman and started an argument. Andy Dewar was a Scotchman who worked in the rolling mill at the time. He and the foreman got in an argument about his production. Andy finally called him up. Then calls went to going all over the department. To hell with him. Let's strike, let's strike. The strike at the Ford Motor Company started in the rolling mill, one of the big units where they had about 4,000 or 5,000 people. And they spread it to other units all over the place. And the one guy named Andy Dewar was the one who started. The union leaders didn't want us to come out. In fact, some of them wanted us to go back. And there was a big fight almost took place on Michigan Avenue at the old local because some of them was telling us to go back in the plant. And we were in no damn mood to go back in the plant after we done got our ass kicked those many years by the Ford Motor Company. And the overwhelming majority of the Ford workers had come out. We wasn't going back, okay? Yeah. Show you the plant tied up. Here's what it said, Ford kept the plant shut. It wasn't Ford kept it shut, it was we who kept it shut. And here are some of the black guys who helped organize the foundry where I was. Here's a guy named Bill Johnson. Here's a guy, Goshen Bradley, and some of these others, I don't remember their names. Most of these were foundry workers. As I told you, there were 17,000 blacks in the foundry, along with about 2,000 or 3,000 whites in the foundry. This is 1941, where outside the Rouge plant, we're still marching. Here is the Dearborn police patrolling Miller Road during the strike. We had occupied the overpass. Here's a good example of how we surrounded the plant. The whole damn plant was organized and occupied by these kind of people all around this plant. Not one gate was left open, you know. Here's some of the guys coming out during the first day of the strike. Some of them coming out to motor building the foundry. All of these pictures tells a different tale of what the Rouge workers endured prior to and during the strike. All of these pictures of brave men, and yes, even the Women's Auxiliary, as you begin to see how the women supported us. These were wives and daughters of the Ford workers who helped out with us and everything. Here is where we were riding up Miller Road on that day, 2 or 3 days late after Ford agreed to sign the contract. Here's some of the jubilation that went on after Ford agreed to recognize the UAW. All of these tells a picture or gives you a picture or your background of some of the hardships and endeavors they went through. This is the Women's Auxiliary. There was another picture with some black and white women on it. This picture only got white women, but these were called the Women's Auxiliary of the Ford workers. Here is some of the black women that was with the Ford, involved in the Ford Women's Auxiliary. Here is when the voting took place during the national strike in 1941, where we would vote yes or no for the UAW. Same thing here. All of this is a picture of the guys who signed the contract. Dick Leonard, get the Shelton Taps, Phil Murray, the president of the UAW at that time, R.J. Thomas, Dick Leonard, and the rest of them up here. All of these are UAW guys who signed the first contract. Al Martel and all of them. Here's R.J. Thomas, here's Harry Bennett, here's R.J. Thomas laughing because he finally got Harry Bennett to sign the contract. Here's Dick Leonard up here snickering and whispering to R.J. Thomas saying, "We got the son of a bitch to sign." That's what they say. He whispered to him. Here is Phil Murray. Here all the union guys in the background. This is Harry Bennett, the no good son of a bitch. Pardon my French. Okay. And here are some more of the union guys and some of the gals. I can name you all who took place on it. This is right after we built this local. You can see the models of the cars here. They are not like the cars they're building today. You can see how they looked there back in 41 and 42. Yeah, that's the credit union up here on Wyoming and Michigan Avenue. That's why we established the Employees Credit Union during the war. And over here is again inside the plant showing you how they were assembling the cars and whatnot. This was again at the 1949 when we had the speed-up strike. This was after the war. And against the orders of the International Union, Walter Reuther, we called a speed-up strike. You know, they had thrown so much goddamn production at us that the workers just couldn't keep up with the assembly lines and the goddamn machines. They said, if you want more production, hire more people. So Local 600 on their own called a strike. No help from the International Union whatsoever. We had to pay a price for it later on. They put an administrator over this local, the International Union did. But that's a different story, I'll tell you later. All of those people came out at the request of the executive board of Local 600, the officers and the executive board. Here is a picture of the Ford Motor Company during the 1949 strike. Here are some of the guys who helped call the strike. Here is when we came out, say raising hell about the pensions, to speed up. If you remember, right after the war, all the plants, Ford led the drive to speed up the machines with less men and women to man the machines. They wanted us to almost to double the production what we were getting on the machine. And that's why we call it the speed-up strike here at the Rouge. This guy used to be head of the FBI for the national government, John Bugis. Here's Walter Reuther, Ken Bannon, and some of the local guys who sit in on settling the strike. This is where the election of officers of Local 600 took place. At that time, we had election booths established. The local hall here was too small to hold 85,000 who come in to vote. And we had to have voting booths put up where people from the different units. If you notice here, you'll see the name of the units and everything. Tuladai, Axel Building, all the name where you would come in to vote. Here was old man John L. Lewis, who came in at the time. Here's the president, Carl Stiletto. Here's the recording secretary, Bill Hood. Here is the financial secretary. All of these at that time were officers of Local 600. But old man John L. Lewis came in on our 10th anniversary, which we're getting into now. And here, now we invited him here despite the objections of the International Union, led by Walter Reuther and other officers. They had no part of this whatsoever. They claimed that we were going, quote, against UAW policy. John L. Lewis spoke to damn near 105,000 people around here. This is just happened. This is on that big field out there, right next to the local across the street. And it's the time that John L. Lewis called Walter a misguided missile who is giving the union back in the hands of the company. Walter John L. Lewis and Phil Murray were at odds at that time. And that Walter and the executive board had sent letters to each member of Local 600 telling them not to respond to this affair where John L. Lewis was going to speak. But as you see, the letter had no damn effect. You can see the thousands of people who came out despite the letter that had been sent out by the International Union. This is where showing the inside of the plant where some of the women were working at the time. See, the women wore long dresses. They had their hair covered up. This is one of the assembly lines, running like hell. Had to keep up with that line, whatever work you was doing. All of this goes into the help building of this local. Here is where the local was finally finished in the 1950s, when we finally completed the local. That's how it looked at that time. Here again is some on the assembly line, a car coming off the assembly line, and the assembly plant over here. The assembly plant had about 6,000 workers in it. There's a plant. This is 1960. Now you can see the cars that was made in 1960 and what they look like today. That was in 1960. Here is where we invited Reverend King. It's a long story. I'll tell you about it someday. Because when we first invited Mrs. Parks here to Detroit, the International Union would not have anything to do with her. They say they don't want to have nothing to do with a bunch of radicals down in Alabama. We had invited the International Union to help bring Mrs. Parks here in 1955. She sat down and refused to give her bus in December of 1955. We, Local 600, brought her here in February of 1956. The first time Mrs. Parks rode a plane, we put on the plane. The first time she came to Detroit, we brought her here. And in that auditorium, the old auditorium over there, I'll show you some pictures sometime where Mrs. Parks, the first visit she made to Detroit, she came to Local 600. And she spoke here and told why she refused to give up her seat on that bus in Alabama. The International Union would have nothing to do with her whatsoever at that time. Got evidence to prove it. This is in 1960 something, damn near 7 years later, when Reverend King here came here. And the only reason why Walter Reuther joined with us that time was because of the parade that took place on Woodward Avenue. And the thousands of people that turned out. And Larry Gettlinger, Walter Reuther's administrative assistant, called Walt at home on a public phone in front of the Fox Theater on Woodward where I showed you. And told him, said, Walter, you better get your ass down here. There are thousands of people here to see Reverend King. This is a guy named David Moore preparing for the strike. Here is where Walter, Ken Bannon, Irving Bluestone, Nelson Samp, I can't think of the rest of them, sitting in on the meeting. This is again This guy, Ken Bannon, was head of the National Ford Department for the UAW. Walter was president. They were being interviewed by the press. Here is the inside of a plane again, I'm showing the work. Here is Owen Bieber out here welcoming Nelson Mandela. This is Ernie Lofton, who was recording secretary at the time. We brought him here, Local 600. Here is a picture of the president of Local 600 at that time. This is a picture of Jesse Jackson. This is a picture of Congresswoman Carolyn Cheeks Fitzpatrick, the mother of the mayor of Detroit. And these are some other people here. See if you could find a handsome guy named David Moore in that picture. I may as well tell you, I'm up at the front line with the president of Local 600. I know you can't find it. Here am I right here. That's me, the president of Local 600 right beside me right there. But this is what was instilled in the workers at the Ford plant due to that hunger march and those martyred souls that you saw murdered on that picture. The leadership of this local has tried to instill in generation after generation of young workers who come in here what this local went through, not only in words, but as you can see in pictures in this hall. Nowhere in the UAW will you find a local as democratic as this local is to its membership, no matter what color, what religion, what political affiliation you are, what your national origin is, what country you're from. That doesn't matter.